What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this special edition of the Daily Dose. I'm your host, Dylan. You can follow me on Twitter at DylanJD98. My co-host tonight, Matt McGinty. You can follow him at Matt_McGinty. And you can follow my man, Scotty, at Scotty Drowned. Very special Sixers/trade deadline edition coming to you tonight. Tyrone Johnson will be joining us in a few moments. But first, a message from our sponsors here at XL Media and BetRivers.
Hey, what's up, guys? March Madness is here. The NBA and NHL are both in full swing. Baseball opening day is coming up, while we here at the Painted Lines are devoted to bringing you top-notch content from all the major sports. We are excited to also now give you the opportunity to cash in on all that content and knowledge. If you follow the link below, you will have the opportunity to sign up with BetRivers, an online sportsbook, and get an instant new user deposit match of up to $250. That's free money that you can use and try to turn into more free money. Let's go. Don't sit there and waste all that money. Turn every basket into an otherwise meaningless Cavs-Timberwolves matchup on a random Wednesday in March. That makes it all the more exciting. For betting tips and advice, be sure to check out written content from our top prognosticator, Money Max, on our website at thepaintedlines.com, or check out the Tough Cover podcast right here on the Painted Lines YouTube channel. You've seen the commercials all over TV and radio, but now is the time. Sign up today with BetRivers using the link below and start cashing in on your love for sports. Using the link below will automatically inform BetRivers that TPL sent you, and you'll get that new user deposit match of up to $250. Don't miss out on this opportunity for some free money, baby.
There you have it, everyone. So go use that link in the description on your YouTube page right now. And like I said, this is a very special edition because we have my man Tyrone Johnson from 97.5 The Fanatic and Sixers Outsiders on NBC Sports Philadelphia. You can follow him on Twitter at Ty Johnson News. Tyrone, how are you, man? And how was your trade deadline day?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. Trade deadline was decent. It wasn't spectacular, but it was decent.
Awesome. So let's just get right into it.
Yeah, let's get right into it. So Ty, last night, how were you feeling going into the deadline? Because I knew who I wanted, and that was the guy for that played at Villanova, Toronto Raptor, Kyle Lowry. Did you see that happening tonight, or today, I should say? Or did you kind of know that the Sixers weren't going to make that kind of move?
Well, it wasn't really about the Sixers. The Raptors didn't want to trade him. The Raptors were lying. They didn't want to trade him. So that was the issue. My question all along was, do they actually want to trade him? Miami made an offer. The Lakers made an offer. The Sixers made an offer, and they didn't trade him, and he's going to be a free agent. So the fact that they didn't trade him at all means that they didn't want to trade him at all. So that was really always the sticky point for me. I don't really blame the Sixers or the Heat or the Lakers. I blame the Raptors. They are a bit delusional, and they say, oh, you don't want to make a bad deal, but getting something is still better than nothing. It was actually extremely stupid what the Raptors did today.
Yeah, no, definitely. But going off of that, just looking at what the Sixers did accomplish today, just what are your overall thoughts on the George Hill acquisition? He's been a name that's been attached to the Sixers team for a few weeks now. So how can he help this team, probably jumping on next week?
Well, he is a ball handler. They needed another ball handler, actual point guard. He plays really good defense. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes open threes. He does a lot of good things that the Sixers actually need. And it gives you flexibility if you don't trust Shake Milton in a spot. You don't have to play Korkmaz in the playoffs anymore. I think it makes the Sixers better for sure. And for the cost, you didn't give up anybody who currently plays, so you only add it to your team. Bradley's only playing because Embiid is out. If Embiid's back, he won't play any minutes. He would just be languishing on the bench. So to me, it's just an addition, but he plays good defense. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes threes. He will absolutely have playoff moments with the Sixers. He will help them.
All right, so I agree. I think he'll definitely help the Sixers team, and it was in need. But I want to focus on one guy you named and how the George Hill addition can help him specifically, and that is Shake Milton. I know he's a part of Club Tyrone, but how do you think this trade impacts him? Because Gint and I have had conversations before, like Shake probably isn't a point guard. and he's probably better off the ball in some situations.
Yeah.
So how does this help him, not have to focus on facilitating and running the offense, and he can just go out there and, provide offense for this team?
Well, it's always with young players, it's always better to give them less responsibility when you're actually trying to win. Now, if the Sixers were a developing team, you wouldn't want to make this trade. You would want him to play more. You'd want Maxey to be playing more. You would want that. That's not the reality. Sixers are trying to win a title, and therefore simplifying everyone's roles makes more sense. And he's more of a combo. Now he can just get downhill, shoot. He doesn't really have to worry about setting anybody up. He can come off the bench and kind of do whatever he wants. It will absolutely help him, and I think it'll end up helping the team as well. Because you just don't want to ask young players to do but so much. Young players do not win in the NBA for a reason, and it's just a plus for Shake.
What's up, Ty? Nice to finally meet you, man.
What's going on?
So to follow up on that question, do you think that this was enough? Like, I know you mentioned contending. We're contending this year. I think we're a contender. You think that is enough to win a title, just grabbing George Hill, or do you think Morey's going to be very active at the buyout market?
I don't think there's going to be any buyout guy that can be the difference between beating the Nets and not beating the Nets. I'm sure he'll look, but that just doesn't apply just to the Sixers, though. The Nets are going to look in the buyout market. I don't think there's going to be anything out there that actually is going to help them actually play defense. All the teams, I think, are going to look at the buyout market. I think there might be some fringe guys maybe, but I think the Sixers are pretty set on what they'll play, who they will play. As far as are they better than the Nets? If the Nets are at their best, probably not. But I don't know if Lowry cost you both Green and Thibault and you didn't make another move, that also wouldn't have been enough because you wouldn't have had enough defense. So it's complicated. It's kind of an assumption that the Nets will ever be at their best. Like, Kevin Durant could just be pacing himself for the playoffs, or there could be real damage with that hamstring. I don't really know the answer to that yet. Neither does anybody. The Nets know, but nobody else seems to know what the actual answer is with that. With all three, the Nets would still be favored, as they should be. They'd be favored over everyone. But at the same time, this deal made them better. And I'm not worried about the Heat or the Bucks or any other team in the East. You get to the conference finals against the Nets and you see what happens.
Gotcha. And then we're talking about the bench here. Consistency's not been a thing with this bench this season, really. So going into the playoffs, do you see like an 8 or 9 man rotation, or do you think that Doc sticks to his guns and does these hockey shifts where he's got 5 guys on the bench out there at once?
No, you won't see that in the playoffs at all. You won't see that at the playoffs at all. It'll be 9 tops, most likely 8 as you get deeper in the playoffs, and that'll be based on who's playing well. But it definitely won't be 10 in the playoffs. Like, Korkmaz is not going to see the floor in the playoffs. Maxey's not going to see the floor in the playoffs. Bradley wouldn't have seen the floor in the playoffs. Like, certain guys are just not going to play, period, unless it's a blowout one way or the other. So, no, it's going to be 9 at the most, likely 8.
Oh, so boy. Let me ask you this real quick. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Do you think there's anyone in this buyout that could jump? Because realistically, now you probably think George Hill, Shake, and Dwight are all going to see playoff minutes. So that would make it.
Thibauld's going to play. So Thybulle might take Shake's minutes. Thibauld's going to play in the playoffs.
So in the buyout market, will you even think there could be a guy that could crack the rotation?
Nope. Honestly, I don't. LaMarcus Aldridge, where would he play? A lot of people like that name. Like, I'll ask you, where would you play LaMarcus Aldridge if he got signed by the Sixers tomorrow? Where would you play him this weekend against the Clippers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I just know a lot of people aren't a huge fan of the Ben, Dwight, and Matisse lineup that you might have to put together in a playoff rotation, as opposed to maybe you put LaMarcus in there, but it's tough to tell.
But then you get killed on the boards. Yeah. He is averaging 4 rebounds a year this year for a reason. Like, I don't think he would honestly be an upgrade. And Simmons' issues will be, unless you think there's a stretch 5, and LaMarcus isn't a stretch 5. He shoots in the mid-range, and that's cute, but he doesn't extend it out to 3. If there's a big out there that shoots 3s, then that player might end up playing, but not a guy who shoots from the mid-range.
So how about this name? Because I'm getting a couple comments from it. DeMarcus Cousins.
Where would he play?
Yeah, I guess they're assuming that stretch 5 that could stretch the floor and hit 3s, but he says provide spacing with Simmons and Thybulle.
Does he? Like, I don't know. Like, does he? I don't have the stats in front of him. Like, does he?
Yeah.
Like, he's available for anybody to grab right now, right?
Right, and
he's been available for a while, right?
Yeah.
Why isn't he on the team? If he's everyone like, and one thing we have to be very careful of is just because you know his name doesn't mean he can play.
Yeah.
Right.
So Cousins has been available for a couple weeks now. No one has signed him. If he's the key to a championship, the Nets need size, don't they? The Nets aren't a big team. They know they have to go against Embiid, right? Why haven't they signed him? Yeah. Like I think that sometimes the names get caught up, and he shoots threes, but does he shoot them well enough? And can you rely on him physically?
Yeah.
Like Dwight Howard's made out of granite. He's been there every single night. He's still able to play 30 minutes when you need it. Like he's been hurt how many years in a row? Like talk about Embiid's injuries. Like Embiid finished his seasons. Like he against Boston last.
Oh,
got a little delay here.
What's going
on?
Embiid
finished this.
There we go.
Like.
There we go. Sorry, your Wi-Fi cut out for a second, but all good. You know, you brought up Joel's injury, so let me throw this question your way, Ty. In past years, I guess it has the feel of just get Joel back healthy for the playoff run, right? And not care as much about seeding, just get him back healthy and ready to go for a playoff series. But with what's going on in Brooklyn, is there a different feel this year where it's like, we kind of need to keep this pace and keep the number one seed going into the playoffs, or does that not matter as much?
No, it matters. But, I mean, they're winning without him now, too. I mean, both having him is more important, but it matters. But also, I don't think you can just make the assumption that the Nets are going to win every game the rest of the year, that the Bucks are going to win every game the rest of the year, and things like that. So there are spots enough where you can rest guys and get ready for the playoffs. But seeding does matter. There's fans in buildings. There'll be fans in the buildings in some capacity in the playoffs. You want to get game 7 at home if you can. So I think it matters, but obviously getting him back is more important. But they don't make this Bradley. They don't include Bradley in the trade if they think Embiid's injury is going to linger. So he'll be fine.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so I was just kind of following up, on the questions regarding DeMarcus Cousins. When I think of DeMarcus Cousins, I think of a defensive liability as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that there was too much focus for everybody around the offensive side of the ball here when the Sixers are ranked second in defensive rating across the league? Should we just stick to what we're good at, which is defense, and live by that, rather than worrying so much about the offensive side of the ball?
You have to do both. You need a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense to win. That's part of the reason why the Nets right now, they have some work to do. In the modern NBA, you have to be top 10 in both. So offense matters, but defense matters just as much. Like if you look at those Warriors teams, everybody talked about Curry and all those guys scoring. They were number one defense a couple of those years, like number one in the league. In addition to the offense, they had the best defense in all of the league. So both matter. And Cousins doesn't play defense. He's never played defense. Well, physically, he can't play defense anymore. So it's not really his fault. It's physical limitations. I think George Hill will play good defense for them. I think the defensive profile that the team has is wise and that travels, but they are going to have to score. Like they're going to need to score. I mean, if you hold the Nets to 110, because they with all the guys, they think they can score 120 a night when Durant's back. They realistically think that, and that's not insane. So can you get to 111? Like you still have to score, but the defense is important, but you got to be really good at both. It's really hard to win an NBA title. It's really, really hard to win an NBA title. It's the hardest championship to win, but the easiest to win more than one.
Okay. So going off that, speaking of like first place and trying to win a championship, we're sitting here at 31-13 with an MVP candidate, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, maybe two. Then we have a guy who is playing above my expectations, probably above 99.9% of this fan base's expectations, and that is Tobias Harris. Did you see, not that you could see this type of play coming, but did you foresee this at all with him under Doc Rivers, or was this a complete, an utter surprise to you that Tobias Harris is at this level right now?
Well, I figured he'd be better. I didn't expect him to be this good and this consistent, though, because he's never been this consistent for this long before this year. Even that Clippers year, that was abbreviated. They weren't a good basketball team, and there was no pressure. And I don't really respect the no pressure numbers. like the Levines and the Vucevics and those. I don't respect numbers when your team stinks. And he was doing things on a Clippers team that wasn't very good, and that's why they traded him, because they weren't very good. I didn't expect it. So I expected him to be good. This good, no. And for this long, no. And I think that's the difference between them and, let's say, the Celtics and some certain teams right now. As the number 3 option, look at how well he's playing, and then look how much Kemba Walker stinks. And then you wonder why Boston's having a bad year and the Sixers are having a good year. So, like no one would have said that Tobias Harris would be better than Kemba Walker, for example, this year. But he has been all season long. So I'm surprised he's been this good for this long. I thought he'd be better, but 20 points a night, 90% from the line, almost 40. Like I didn't think any of that was going to happen. So I'm a bit surprised, pleasantly surprised, but I think this is real.
Right, helping carry the team while Joel Embiid is not on the floor. We have
I didn't
a question.
Expect a lot of that.
Yeah, no, especially not when they started 1-5 without Joel, and now they've completely flipped that around. We have a comment here. For years now, Simmons has become an offensive liability come playoff time. Do the Sixers have the pieces around him now, or has he developed enough offensively for that to be different this year?
I wish I could just give you the answer to that. George Hill, there might be times where he has to play off the ball. Like there might be crunch time minutes where Green or Curry are off the floor, Hill is on the floor, and Ben has to play off the ball. We'll find out. I tell you what, if they make the Lowry trade, they're telling you that no, he's not ready. The fact that they didn't push all in, I mean, they made an offer as they should have made an offer, and I thought they made a strong offer, and I believe it was the best offer. And Toronto just didn't want to trade him for whatever reason. If they get the Lowry deal, they're kind of telling you, if they had, let's say they put Thibault in the deal, what they're saying is that Ben's not ready. The fact that they made the proper offer but didn't push all the way in to get it done, that tells me that they think there's still a chance. But we won't know to the playoffs because we've seen them do things in regular seasons that some of those answers, unfortunately, are not convenient or not pleasant or not easy. I don't think we're going to know until the playoffs.
Okay.
Let me switch gears to a totally different guy that we didn't really mention much, and that's Tyrese Maxey. Obviously, he's 20 years old, real young kid, and he's shown flashes of being a good NBA player. Mm-hmm. Now, it was in a COVID game. He dropped 39 points, but still impressive regardless.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, the timetable of this team, does he fit in terms of winning with the core group we have right now? Because I just don't see where him and Ben really coexist unless he finds a jump shot and turns into this guy that might be able to put up 38% from three.
Well, I mean, you can't decide that a 20-year-old will never be good. I think as soon as next year he can help him. Green's expiring, Hill's expiring. They didn't trade him for a reason. Like, he's going to be here. I think as soon as next year he could begin to help him. I think he can be a good basketball player. He's not going to see the floor for a single minute in the playoffs this year, but there's no reason to believe that he can't develop. There's a lot of players that don't play much when they're on good teams. If matter of fact, if the Sixers were just an average team, if they were sitting there where Miami is and down, where the Bulls are, those, that 5 through 10 range, he would probably be playing 20 minutes a night. It's not that he can't play; it's that the Sixers are trying to win a championship. So no, I think he fits in, and he doesn't have to start to help this team. Like, they just got Hill to be a backup point. Why couldn't he develop and play that role as soon as next year? I think he can absolutely fit in with the timeline, just not this year's timeline.
All right, Ty, before Scott asks his final question here, I just have one. It's Sixers related, but it's not on the Sixers team. Because I got a lot of pushback for this at 3 p.m. when the deal went through. We look at the Milwaukee Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets of the East, and that's our competition. But then there was a team that made a run in the bubble last year that made to the finals, and they added a piece today, and they're supposedly getting LaMarcus Aldridge at the buyout. What are your thoughts on the day that the Miami Heat had? Or now with the move for Victor Oladipo, if they sign LaMarcus Aldridge, do they get put in that mix with Philly, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee? Or do you not buy too much into that Victor Oladipo trade?
Well, I don't buy into the Aldridge thing at all. So I dismiss that as nothing.
Okay.
13-4 is not, oh no, now they're going to lose because of Aldridge 13-4. Now, if this was Aldridge from 2017 or 2015, by all means, Aldridge is not a worry. They can only play 5 guys at a time. So you have all these guards. So now I guess Tyler Hero's out of the rotation.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're going to do. Now he hasn't shot the ball well, but he was the key to a lot of what they did, him and Robinson. Right. So now if you're playing Nunn and Oladipo, you're not playing Robinson and Hero. That's advantage Sixers to me because you don't have to chase guys off the 3-point line when Jimmy Butler goes to dribble drive. And then if those guys are still on the floor, what the heck did you trade for Oladipo for? So he has to play. So the Heat are better, but I don't think no. I think that because we know the name, Oladipo. Also, why was it so easy to get him?
Exactly.
Like you have to ask that question. Like, why was it so easy for them to get him? If he's so good, and we just like to assume, Pat Riley's the smartest guy in the world. Is he? Like, when was the last time the Heat won a title? Like when was LeBron. When LeBron was there, right? So like post LeBron, they've been like good and they've gotten close. And last year was in a bubble, but like the same thing with Ainge. Oh, Danny Ainge don't make a trade with Ainge. He's the greatest. And look, they miss out again on Gordon. So some of this is just reputation thing. I just try to look at it. If Oladipo's some superstar, why was it so easy to get him? Yeah. And what's your closing lineup? What's your closing lineup now if you're the Heat? Because you can't play them all closing. Yeah. You can't play them all. So, and they're not going to go and just jump around. They're going to try to set a certain lineup. I think the Heat got better today. They didn't get worse, but I don't put them in the mix. I think there's 3 good teams in the East, 2.5. The Sixers, the Nets, and then the Bucks are sometimes either me. I don't trust the Greek Freak in the playoffs. He sat on the floor when Embiid didn't play. I don't respect him as a man anymore either. To be honest with you, like sitting like imagine if the Sixers acted like that and Greek Freak didn't play and they won in Milwaukee in overtime and they were celebrating like that. They wouldn't be able to come home. So I think Sixers would beat that team in the playoffs in 5 or 6. So it's still the Sixers and the Nets, and the Heat are the 4th best team. Congratulations.
Yeah. I got a lot of pushback with that Heat trade earlier. So go ahead.
It's all right. Like it's not it helps them some, but like if Hero starts playing better, then what are you going to do? And then Nunn and it's a lot of same Dragic. Like who's going to play? Who are their guard? Then they have Iguodala and Ariza. Like I understand. Like it seems like the dream team with the Eagles. Oh, look at it. You can only play 5 guys and when it's crunch time because they're not going to blow people out. I don't know who the 5 that they're going to trust. But I know now the really good shooters to help them get to, they're probably not going to play when it matters. So now I don't have to cover the 3-point line because I got to deal with Ariza and Iguodala. Oh, thank you. Like I actually think that he got like they got better, but no, they're not. They're not on the Sixers level. They're not.
Thank you.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Go ahead, Scott.
So I got the last question here for you, Ty.
Yeah.
So I mentioned you mentioned that the Sixers are part of those good teams in the East.
Yeah.
What does a successful season look like this season, right? So you're coming off last season, a 6th seed, you get swept, you fire Brett Brown, you bring in Doc Rivers, you kind of revamp the rotation, you get some shooting, you bring in, veterans, Dwight Howard, Danny Green. What does a successful finish to this season look like? Is it finals or nothing? Is it Eastern Conference finals or failure? What does success look like this season?
Well, I think there can be a line between success and failure. Anything less than the conference finals is complete and utter failure.
Yeah.
NBA finals is a success because I don't know. You have to see who's going to play, what's going on. You can't say if you don't win a title, they're not quite there. Now, that's probably the case next year. Like next year, Simmons is a year older. It's probably championship or bust. This year is if you don't get to the conference finals against the Nets or whoever, if you fall down and see either way, if you don't get to the conference finals this year was an abject failure. Getting to the second round would be completely unacceptable. So that would be a failure.
So it's really like, I hate to, base it on Ben and Joel's career, but what's the farthest they've gotten is like the
second round.
Second
Game
round.
7 of the second round. Game 7 of the second round.
Eastern Conference Finals would be that next growing step for them, basically.
Right. And that's where they have to go. Now, if they don't get there, my guess is it would be because of Simmons, not Embiid, because Embiid has raised his game. But we'll see how it plays out. But they have to get to the conference finals. And but that's just passable. Getting to the finals would then be good. That's success. So I think sometimes it can't be just like pass fail. Like we have to have nuance. Like when they lost to the Raptors and on that Kawhi shot, that's not a bad season. Yeah. Like that wasn't a bad season. Like at that point, you're talking about guys are 24 and 22 and they like, so what? Like that kind of thing. That's not a bad season. This year, if you get to the conference finals and the Nets are just better than you, it's not a bad season. But it's not successful. If you get to the finals, at that point, it's almost gravy. Like, we won't be saying that at the time, but when we look back on it years later, we'll say, oh, that team really took a lot of steps, and this is why they ended up winning a title or two. So that's the line, though. They're, like, first or second round, like, they have to just like. And by the way, if they play any of those Celtics, Bulls, any of those teams, they'll sweep them.
And that's what I was going to say.
The Mo Wagner Celtics,
right?
Come on, man. Like,
why did they do that? Why did they trade Tice for Mo Wagner?
I don't know. I guess they're going to. I don't know. Ainge is not as smart as people think. Like, they have, and then they added. So now another team. Since I got a second, you got Kemba Walker, you got the two J's. You added Fournier. You got Smart. You can't play all five of them at once.
Right.
So then, who do they close with? I hope they would close with that lineup, because that would really help. That would really help the Sixers win the series fairly easily. But you can't play all five of those guys. Like, there's too much same there. Like, if they had added a power forward that could actually, like, be good, not Wagner, like a real power forward, then I go, okay, now they're working with something here, because then you can slot those guys and be really tall around, having those two wings. They're just not built correctly. Like, I don't. Like,
would Aaron Gordon have done that for you?
What I would have done is I would have played him at the 5.
Okay.
And then that allows you to be different and be tough to cover. But once again, Ainge just came up short. He made a great offer, I'm sure, just like with Anthony Davis and all the other trades that they've missed out on, how they were right there and they wanted to get up to the first pick, and they were right there and they just couldn't pull the trigger. So the Celtics, Fournier's not a bad player. It's just, you can't play Kemba, Fournier, and Smart together. So what are they going to do? Like, that's the part. And none of those guys are points other than Kemba. So it's just, it got better. But I think in a playoff series, when you know tendencies, that lineup's not going to beat the Sixers, because the Sixers are built better. That's the good thing about Hill. Who's the primary ball handler with the second unit? That guy. And he can play with every single one. They didn't add anybody just to add them. And I think the Heat and the Celtics did some redundancy adding that will end up leading to their undoing.
Stylot, I have one last quick question for you, and this is for our listeners. Because for whatever reason, we have a large Eastern European following, and every show I come on here every day, and I have people in the comments argue with me about Furkan Korkmaz, and I'm 23 years old and going gray. Can you please tell these people why Furkan Korkmaz is not going to be in the playoff rotation, nor should he be?
Well, he doesn't defend. And he doesn't get that shot off against good defense. That's the problem. If he was getting those threes off against good defense, by all means play him, and you could almost absorb the bad defense because you'll have 4 other good defenders around him. But against good defense, he doesn't get shots off, and that's been a big problem. He can't get his shot off, and that's a problem. You look at the end of the Bucks game, you have a bunch of guys drawing attention, and then DiVincenzo, like a moron, tries to go for the steal, even though they had a foul to give. It makes no sense to do that. It's better to just run into Korkmaz at that point and make them have to inbounds again. Instead, he gambles for the steal, and he gets a clean look. And he has shown he can make clean looks. There's not going to be a lot of clean looks in the playoffs.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's the issue. If you could say that every time Joel Embiid kicks out, they're not going to scramble, and he's going to be open, well, then by all means play him. But when they play tough defense, he has trouble getting it off, let alone making it. And you don't need a guy who's a three-point shooter who's a reluctant three-point shooter. It doesn't add anything to your roster, and that's why he just can't. You're going to have to play Thigel. You're going to have to play Shake. You're going to have to play Hill. And Dwight Howard's your backup center, and B's probably going to play. He's probably going to play 40 minutes, but at least 8 minutes a game. That's when Dwight's going to play. So it just doesn't really work. And then late in the game, if you have to get a stop, you can't have him in the game. And you can't assume you'll be able to call a timeout. Like, because you know what happens then. It's late game, they flatten out. No matter what Simmons or Embiid does, they're going to do pick and roll stuff and make Korkmaz switch onto the other team's best person. So if you're worried about the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, do you want Korkmaz in the game to guard Jimmy Butler late in a close game? Because that's what they'll do. That's the other coaches get paid too. So you're going to have a switch situation. They're not going to start with Korkmaz, obviously, on Jimmy Butler. They're going to create a situation where there's a pick, and now Korkmaz must guard Jimmy Butler. And the Sixers are up 1. And now you just lost the game. Every single other guy that plays for the Sixers might get a stop. Shake Milton 6'5" with a 6'8" wingspan. Hill has played playoff defense a whole bunch of times. You know about Ben Simmons. You know about Tobias Harris even because he's long. Danny Green has played defense in how many different playoff series? Like anyone else, has a shot. You can't have a guy out there who they lost this one. Like you would know before the ball went in. And that's the issue. And all this stuff, I guess, is stuff he can improve. Let's say for the last 20 games of the year, he becomes a lockdown defender. Like I'm able to be convinced. I'm saying I'm basing all this on what I've seen. Like you can't trust him late in the game. All right, Greek Freak. He switches. Oh, Middleton has the ball. Right. So Middleton has the ball now. Okay. Do you trust Korkmaz to stop Middleton or Durant or Harden or Kyrie?
Yeah.
Late in the game. Like you just can't risk it. You can't risk it. You just couldn't.
I'm going to guess Furkan Korkmaz will never see his way into a club Tyrone in his NBA career.
Hell no. No. Hell no. No, he's not allowed to. But it's not that. It's just that he actually has a lot of limitations that a lot of European players have. Like how many times have the Euros been good defensively ever?
Right.
Like how many good defensive Euros are there currently in the entire NBA? Seriously.
Yeah.
Like I'm all ears.
Yeah. Can't think of one. Literally.
I'd love to know. Look, they're all trolling the deer in the comments. He comments every day, gets on my nerves about Furkan Korkmaz. I wish I knew where he was.
Listen, I and this isn't really hating. I'm talking about the playoffs. I said I love Maxey. He's not going to play a single minute. That's not you couldn't trust him on offense. He would turn the ball over 100 times against playoff defense. Korkmaz is not the only player on the Sixers roster with flaws. It's just his flaws would be exacerbated. And if he's not making shots, he just can't help you. While we learned that Curry this year, he can put the ball on the floor. We didn't know that and distribute a little bit. He has a more well-versed skill set. Danny Green's played passable defense for a last decade in the NBA. Like it's just Korkmaz doesn't have a diverse enough skill set to be in a playoff rotation.
So quick it's crazy how things can change in a few months or one season. Because last time we had you on the show, we were talking which team in this city has a better chance of winning a championship first, and it was Flyers. That's the route we were going. And now, last I checked, they're getting beat 2-0 again.
Yeah, they were. And 8 minutes into the game, they were already down 2-0.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's later now, but 8 minutes in, they were already down 2-0. The GM spoke yesterday, didn't mean a damn thing. They didn't respond, is what I'm saying. Didn't 2-0 just like that. The defense hasn't been good enough. But that I think what we're learning is the value of a coach. And unfortunately, Flyers hockey, they change coaches like people change draws. And NBA is just a different kind of sport that. And obviously having Doc Rivers has made a big difference because the roster is different, but it's not that different. Doc Rivers has made a big difference. And unfortunately, Vigneault has not been able to keep the magic he had last year and apply it to this year, in addition to the roster. But you can tell something's off between the coach and the players with the Flyers right now. I don't know what it is, but something's off. Yeah,
something definitely. Myers, Sanheim that were playable last year in a 7-game series aren't playable right now. So it's insane.
Yeah, what happened?
You guys can follow him on Twitter at Ty Johnson News. Tyrone, before we let you go, let me get a pick for tonight's game for the Sixers. Win or bad loss against the Lakers tonight?
Oh, no, they'll win the game. It'll probably be a little close because Danny Green was questionable last I saw.
That's questionable too.
Yeah, so that's not for another 30 minutes. Obviously, Bradley can't play in the game tonight, obviously. So we might see B-Ball Paul. And I know he was great in the G League, but we haven't really seen him have to play rotation minutes yet. Like, he might just be in L.A. So I think they'll win, but I think it'll be close just because even without LeBron, they didn't make any changes. The Sixers made some changes, and Bradley was playing decent for them. And real fast, there was no hate with the Bradley thing. It's just he wasn't going to play.
No, I agree with you.
He just wasn't going to. Like, Embiid's back, they're playing Embiid and Howard, and that's it. Like, he wasn't going to play. So it's not that he's a bad player. It's just he wasn't going to play here. Like, he was going to get 0 minutes. Yeah. So, you might as well get value for him. He was literally going to play no minutes.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good tweet that you put out earlier because it's like, yeah, you'll need Bradley if Embiid gets injured, but if Embiid gets injured, we don't have
no season.
It's not like, Bradley's going to hold it down and now they beat the Nets. That's not going to happen. So either way, it's either Embiid's back and Bradley doesn't play, or Embiid's out and you can't win.
Yeah.
Right. So having him there's no value at that point. You figure it out. You play Simmons at times a small ball 5, and you you do something else. But either way, you can only win with everyone. Same thing applies to Tobias or Ben Simmons. Like, their backups are not going to be the reason why they win. It's going to be because those guys are all there and the backups add to it. And I think that was something that other teams like the Celtics and the Heat didn't pay attention to. You want to add, not just, now the backup. Like, you need your main guys to play well, and then a couple big shots, a couple big rebounds, a couple big stops from the extra guys. And I think that's how the Sixers are properly built. That's how the Nets are basically built. They have their 3 stars, and everybody else is supposed to work around them. And it seems like the Heat and the Celtics kind of didn't get that memo.
Absolutely. Tyrone, thank you so much for coming on, man. Go Sixers.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Ty.
Appreciate it, guys. Later.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Awesome stuff there from Tyrone. Again, Scott, major takeaways from our little interview, our little conversation there?
That we were right the whole time and Furkan's not good. You heard it out of his
I thought he kept it, as real as possible. I think, a lot of the time, especially in Philadelphia media, fans, we get so over dramatic. You know what I mean? We get so worked up, and it's partly our own fault. We work ourselves up. The national media feeds into it, right? Like they use us as pawns most of the time.
The Sixers are on the 1 yard line to get Kyle Lowry.
What's the point of that? It's just to work us up. Then we start talking about it, and now Miami's like, "Oh, we got to offer Hero." You know what I mean? So it's partly our own fault, but just him keeping it real. I thought that was the best part of it, because at the end of the day, we can beat the Nets and we can lose to the Nets. There's a lot of things that can happen the rest of this season. I thought we were a contender before the trade deadline. I think we're a contender now. I don't think George Hill is, swinging the needle or anything, but I don't.
But it helps.
It helps. It's all you can ask for.
Sure. I think one of the things that stuck out to me when we were talking about other teams in the East and adding, Scott, when I was on your show the other day, and you asked me what teams need to add something, and I said I gave you the Sixers. They didn't do it to the extent I thought, but they added something. Right. I gave you the Clippers. Not really sure what the hell they were doing today. They gave up Lemon Pepper Lou for Rondo. And then
wild in ATL, dude.
And then I gave you the Nets for that reason. A rim protecting big. I gave you that was who I thought the Nets needed, and that's one thing he discussed today. And I think a lot of people just look past that. And he talked about how the Nets, you got to be top 10 defense in defense and as well as on offense. And the Nets they've been playing better defense as of late, but they're just not that team. So I think a lot of people just give them that pass because they look at the 3-headed name monster, and that's that. But a lot of good stuff there from Tyrone Johnson.
I'm really sorry. It was cool to hear out of someone's mouth that the George Hill thing is going to be okay, because I heard it from you.
Did it calm you down? Yeah, what? You heard it from me and it wasn't good enough. You had to hear from someone better.
And then I got.
And then what about the Heat?
No, I stand differently on that than he does. But that's
all right.
It's sports. But dude, and then we have the I don't want Lowry train, and they're like, thank God we got George Hill and not Kyle Lowry.
Well, that's asinine.
That's working me up even more, dude. We're on the 1 yard line,
yeah.
But another thing, that we can talk about. I mean, he pointed to mentioning how you really need to be top 10 on both sides of the ball. Who's closer to that, Brooklyn or Philadelphia? When Philadelphia is sitting at 13th in offensive efficiency. So, who's really closer to being that legit contender in reality, aside from the big names? It's like everybody got so hyped, big four with Blake Griffin. What's he
I'll give you my answer, and it's, it's going to come off as biased, but it's really not. So the Nets are missing who? KD. KD comes back. That doesn't bolster their defense or their defensive efficiency or rating, right? Now, you mentioned the Sixers are 13th or whatever. Can they get top 10? Well, Joel Embiid's missed a lot, has missed games. That hurts their offensive efficiency and offensive rating. You know what I mean? So he's coming back. So one on the Sixers side, the guy coming back helps what they need to be top 10 in both. And on Brooklyn side with KD, he only bolsters your offense even more. He's not going to give you much on the defensive end. So that's my answer there. One thing, if you guys want to continue to hang out with us and comment along, we're going to stay on for a little while longer and chop it up about, tonight's matchup against the Lakers and talk about that for a little bit, but just other trade deadline stuff. And one conversation I mentioned to you guys I wanted to have when Tyrone was off was I want to talk about Daryl Morey for a second, because there's a lot of people, and I see them in the comments that, agree, and, Morey's not going to give in, but a lot of people are upset. And they're on Twitter and they're saying some things like pathetic, coward, like inexcusable. This was like blah, blah, blah. And I want to pose this question to everyone. And Ginn has asked it before about the athletes in our city. And so, we talk all the time about why in the city do we treat our athletes this way? Oh, another special guest appearance.
What's up, guys?
What's going on, Jay?
Listen, I didn't want to interrupt what you got going on. However, Daryl Morey is about to go live, so I thought if you guys want, let's just do it right in here, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just, so I'll connect to the Zoom, and we'll throw him up in the screen, and then we can talk about it a little bit after he talks. So if that works, I'm sorry for jumping in.
No,
Austin and I were talking about how to stream it. Justin was saying we should stream it, and I saw that you guys were live. So
I think the people would much rather hear from Daryl Morey than my mouth or Ginn's mouth or Scott's mouth. So let's do it.
I mean, not these guys. I see some familiar faces in the comments.
Yeah,
I know they rock with us. So
yes, sir.
All right,
Here
so I'm going to jump out for just a second and connect to the Zoom, and then I'll be right back. Okay.
Awesome. So while Jason's getting that set up, my point was, we treat our star athletes kind of like, again, you mentioned it with Carson, and we talked about it with Ben and all that stuff. We kind of run these athletes out of town sometimes in this city. And then we hold on to these weird athletes that, just aren't as talented, or that we love their background story. Now, the same thing with Daryl Morey. I'm seeing all these comments. Dude, 4 months ago, this man pulled this team who was a 6 seed last year, just got swept, was a mess, had Al Horford on the books. Oh my God, how are they going to fix this, get this right? He comes in, and within one night, on the night before the draft, their draft night, that's all changed. They're 31-13. They've been first in the Eastern Conference for months. And now, because he doesn't pull the trigger on a guy that you really wanted, but he still does something that helps the team, which has been, kind of fits his mold, which is fit. George Hill fits this team, right? This roster. Seth Curry fits this roster. Danny Green fits this roster. That's what George Hill does. And I'm not saying Kyle Lowry didn't. He did. But everyone on Twitter is freaking out because he didn't pull the trigger. It's unbelievable. You're going to try to run Daryl Morey out of office now? Yeah. Come on, man. So
you put Elton Brand back in charge.
Yeah, come on.
I mean, come on, man. Short leash in Philly, man. That's for sure.
Unbelievable. I can't wait to hear what he has to say.
I saw someone posted on Twitter, like, why can't we ever do anything like sign Ilyasova and Bellinelli anymore? Like, okay, you want Brian Colangelo back? All right. Cool. That's cool.
And by the way, how did it work out when we signed Ersan Ilyasova and Bellinelli? We got bounced in 5 games, right? In second round?
I mean, and they got to the second round probably before they were ready. They did win like 17 games in a row with them. So I think it's probably the best thing that Brian Colangelo did as a as the GM of the
I wonder what phone he used to make those trades.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
Fantastic, man.
Yeah, that conversation with Tyrone was good.
He's
got some answers about Furcon. Got some answers about the Heat.
I can't wait to cut that part up, and then whenever Nadir jumps in the video, I'm just going to overlay it.
Oh my God, yeah.
Be like, you don't want to hear it from me. Hear it from a guy who does this for a living. Here you go.
Yeah, man. Ty was awesome. I thought that was a great interview. Kept it real. I think it was good to balance out the fan base. Calm down. The first in the East. Calm down.
Calm down. For real, man. I'm trying to make a thumbnail that we may be able to quick throw up on the video, but I'm basically gonna put a bunch of pictures of Daryl Morey's face.
I mean, do people really think that Kyle Lowry is so much better than George Hill that he's worth more in a playoff series than George Hill, Matisse Thybulle?
Sure. And Danny Green. Yeah.
And people are like, yeah, he's better than the three of them combined.
Yeah, especially when you
to the point where it's like a heartbreak. Come on.
It's our leader here, man. It's our fearless leader at TPL. Brian Jacobs is heartbroken.
My heart.
Oh, yes, he is.
It was one of Let's not forget that Brian Jacobs, and everybody loves him. We all love him. Kemba Walker was his favorite player. So, and he also loved Jahlil Okafor. So it's just.
Hey, I had the Ja T-shirt as well.
Let's put it all in context for a minute.
Oh man.
No, man, it's this city. They get themselves so worked up. You see it right around the Eagles trade deadline. You see it every season, man. Everybody gets worked up. We're getting this big name. You know, it's been OBJ for years with the Eagles. Now it's, Kyle Lowry. And I get it, bringing him home. But, if Kyle Lowry really wanted to come to Philly, I feel like he could have forced the Raptors into that. You know what I mean? So
undoubtedly. Undoubtedly.
Jason, I said this to them earlier. Again, who's the kid from the Lakers?
Talon Horton-Tucker.
Right. So the rumor was, like, we wouldn't pull the trigger for Matisse and all that. So my question to you, Jason, is who's dumber in this situation? The Raptors for not giving them up for anything and not even taking like 2 firsts and Tyrese Maxey and Danny Green from us or whatever, or the Lakers, because the rumor with the Lakers deal getting held up is that they wouldn't throw him into the deal for Toronto. Are we kidding?
They are kidding. They're blowing smoke up people's ass. It's like the thing that Danny Ainge tries to
sell.
Yeah,
how he's always that close.
It was so close, but they wanted Peyton Pritchard. I mean, obviously we can't give up Peyton Pritchard.
That's the fan base's love, heart and joy right there. That's Peyton Pritchard, man. You can't do that.
Yeah, but a good GM plays the fan base that way, right? And they want the fan base to know that they were trying, that they were doing their job, they weren't sitting on their hands. And then when something didn't work out, I was like, oh, they just asked too much.
Yo, let me ask you this.
Not that we're going to hear that in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is sort of part of the job description.
Let me ask you this. Like, they got to steal because they had, what was it? They had the, Boston had like the whatever to afford Fournier for only 2 second rounders. But why did they end up flipping Tice for Mo Wagner?
So, talking with some Boston people, that is to get them under the hard cap to allow them to be players in the buyout market. So they want to have a slot to offer
Drummond,
Marcus Aldridge, or Drummond, and they felt like they had to just shave a little bit of salary. So
here's the thing: buyout market wise, though, who wants to go play with them right now? Realistically, do people in the buyout really think that if they go to that team that they're going to be title contenders this year?
I mean, if I'm Drummond, to me that would be like choice number 1. But it seems like Drummond's choice number 1 is either New York or LA. So, all right, I think we might be. So, no, we're not. We're still waiting. Sorry.
You said
no. So I saw Danny Pomel's face come up, and he just turned his camera on. So
you jumped on it, man.
I think Drummond is just a different cat, but to me, he makes sense there. I don't think LaMarcus Aldridge makes as much sense in Boston.
Well, Jay, I'm asking you all about all these other teams. What are your thoughts on the George Hill acquisition?
I don't actually think they gave up very much. All right, here we go.
All right.
Daryl, what's up? Guys, Daryl has joined the call. Any is for him? Just raise your hands. Okay. Daryl, first question is from Lauren.
Lauren, the softball from Lauren to start.
Here we go. You're gonna love it. It's a softball indeed.
You didn't set that up, did you? Already.
You're gonna like it.
Okay.
How much of
Well,
today?
I know you should ask. Is George Hill good or great, Daryl? What do you think? Your
Let's
comment.
start with that. Is George Hill good or great, Daryl? What do you think?
Go ahead. What were you gonna ask me? Sorry.
Well, you don't want to do that one first?
Great. All right, you go ahead now.
Okay. I was just gonna say, when you went into today, how much of what did or didn't happen was based on the faith that you have in your existing roster, and how much were you looking to sort of preserve that based on the success that they've had?
I think Doc at it best. I mean, Doc loves his team, loves how we're playing. I love this team. I love how we're playing. Obviously, I got a tough one tonight with the Lakers and a little more shorthanded. Sorry, Coach Rivers, we're a little more shorthanded tonight. Yeah, I mean, I think we feel very good about the roster we have, our chances to win the championship, and I think Doc had some good comments recently about looking for a two-way guard, and that being one of what he thought were the very few needs for us, and so that's what we got with George, a veteran two-way guard, can shoot at a very high level and defend at a high level. I think one thing that Coach Rivers and Coach Burke can do right now is put, 5, strong playoff tested guys who can play both ends on the floor at one time if they want to do that in crunch time. So we're pretty excited about that.
Thank you.
Let's go to Tom Moore.
Yes, Daryl, I was just wondering, kind of looking ahead, what's your sense of the buyout market? If you might be able to do something, or if you'd be looking to be active there, depending who's available.
It's early. Obviously, that's a lot of our work after the trade deadline. As you guys are all veteran writers on here, I see a bunch of pros who've done it a couple of years. So that's been a lot of our work. Really, at this point, some of the players you can't really get real feedback on because it's early days. But I feel pretty good that someone who Coach Rivers thinks will help us will be available. But it is very early to really give too much details on that. But we feel good about the buyout market. Yeah.
Go to Paul Hudrick.
Hey, Daryl. Excuse me. Just with George obviously coming off the thumb procedure, just curious if you had any kind of timeline or when you kind of can expect him to be in a Sixers uniform.
Yeah, so we have what Oklahoma City represented to us, which is that he's fine. He's obviously going to be called up by the playoffs. I don't say that because we're back earlier, but our medical staff hasn't had a chance to evaluate him yet. But our understanding is that his time back is measured in, somewhere. I don't want to give a timeline, but it's not long. He had an issue where he chose to have surgery on it so that it will never be an issue again. And I think, that pushed out his recovery. But once he's back, apparently it will never be something that never bothers him. So we're very optimistic about him going forward medically.
Do Martin Arducci next.
How much was George's prior postseason success? How much did that factor into this?
I think that's a big factor. Obviously, shooting being a premium for us, and I think he maybe led the NBA in shooting recently. I mean, he's, I think that's been a big theme for us. To get the shooting in a two-way player like sort of Danny, I sort of see him as an acquisition like we did with Danny Green, guy who's been through a lot of playoff wars, guys who can hit shots at a high level such that when Joel is double teamed or people have to collapse on down in the paint, those passes out will be shot at a very high percentage. And then on top of it, both Danny and George give you solid defense, solid playoff tested defense, and that was a good factor as well.
Let's go to Kai and then Noah. Kai, go ahead.
Hey, Daryl. There was a lot of talk about how, you guys and Kyle Lowry. I was just curious if there was any type of traction there or anything close to getting Kyle.
I can't specifically address a player on another team, but obviously at the trade deadline, you have lots of options, a lot of speculation on options that were out there. I mean, all I can say is, we're very excited about the option we ended up with. And, frankly, I think we did the deal about 2 hours before the deadline. And that's, we took an option that we thought really upgraded our team this year on both ends, and at the same time kept all our optionality alive in the future. If George Hill, becomes the integral part of this team, we think he will. We have the option to keep him and not have him go to free agency. We also kept all our important assets, to upgrade the team going forward. So we really felt good about this option. It allows us to really upgrade the team for the playoff wars to come, and at the same time keep all our bullets if an option in the future comes available.
Thanks, Daryl.
So Noah, then Keith, and Kyle. Noah, go ahead.
Hey, Daryl. Tony Bradley, who's obviously been starting at center, is one of the guys you traded away. How do you feel about the team's front court depth now, and does the notion that Ben can be a center option in the playoffs factor into the thinking at all?
Yeah, we were building around Tony Bradley as Joel. It was, honestly, Joel made fun, but Tony Bradley. I mean, let's talk about him. I mean, he gave us amazing minutes and obviously really helped us through the stretch with Joel out this year, and. He's been a big factor. Poirier and Ferguson never really had a chance to show what they can do. We wish them well as well. But we didn't want to lose Tony. He was a key part of the deal that allowed us to get it done. And I think his great play made that happen. In terms of our front court depth, I do think in the buyout market I generally just always go best player. I'd rather have the best players than fit. That said, I think, in the buyout market, it's often a conversation about opportunity and role. And we have probably more opportunity at that big spot. So I would expect a buyout would probably be more big if we do any at all. We'd be more big. That said, we feel good. Joel and Dwight can obviously play the 5, more of a traditional 5, as you mentioned. We can, Doc, if he chooses, can put unique lineups on the floor with Ben and Tobias and Mike Scott. So, we feel good about where we're at. But if a buyout comes along, I think more likely big than not.
Next is Keith and then Kyle. Go ahead, Keith.
Daryl, with this acquisition in mind, did you get him to be a starter, or are you looking at him as someone that in his role to beef up the backup unit?
Yeah, that's not my job. Dr. Rivers will decide that. He'll honestly, Doc Rivers has pushed every right button this year. I wish there was. I guess a lot's being written now, thankfully, but more should be written about the job Doc Rivers and his staff has done. I mean, he's got literally every. I challenge you to find a player on a team not playing at their best of their career. Doc's done an amazing job. He's going to decide those things. My job is just to add the talent and the players, and I'll let Doc decide what's best. But I think, he has options. I mean, I think he can go a whole bunch of different ways, and all of them should be pretty strong and hard to beat in a 7-game series.
Now, when we talk about George Hill, you talked about, if you want to make a move, it's going to be to help you guys win a championship. I know you talk about, he's a great shooter. He's a solid defender. But if there was one thing that really, really attracted you the most about him, what was it?
Well, it can't be those things. You named a lot. we had some, Peter Dinwiddie worked with him in Indiana for many years. It's always nice to get guys that can contribute at a high level. Defensively, it was hugely important. We feel like if we're going to win the title, we have to be the best defense in the league. And right now, I think we're number 2. I believe we're going to finish the season number 1. We felt like George solidified that, in that with teams, often will attack your weakest defender on the floor. And we had quite a few lineups where there was like an option for the other team to attack. So I would say probably in terms of relative to our team, defense was probably 1, but it's very important that if you put a defender on our floor, especially with Joel and Ben, that player can shoot. That player can be safe at the ball. George has always been a guy who's extremely safe at the ball, makes the right play. And so I'd say, not to minimize it, but yeah, defense and the shooting were probably paramount. And obviously George brings a lot more than that, but those were 2 of the big ones.
We've got time for a few more guys. Let's start with Kyle Newbeck. Hey, Daryl, how would you compare the market this year compared to any other years, whether that's based on, how COVID has impacted teams, whether it was a seller's market versus buyer's market? Like, what was the landscape this year?
It felt a little less, but I can't really tell because you get so caught up in your own team and upgrading your own team that I don't really think about the bigger market too often. But for us, it felt a little less. I think some of that was, we're playing so well. People knew that we're probably not going to trade any of our key players out. So, a lot of the possible deals you might have of future compensation or draft picks for our players aren't really on the table, and other teams aren't going to call you. In terms of possible options, and for material upgrades, we felt like there really were only 2 to 3, and with George being one of those, and that feels like less than normal. Yeah, it does feel like there were less things we were focused on. But part of that's it's just really hard to upgrade a team that's on pace to win, in a normal year, 55 to 65 games. That's not easy to find upgrades generally.
Thanks, Tom. Go to Jason Blevins next.
Hey, Daryl. So for that you talked about the traditional big versus the creative lineups. As you look at that buyout market, what's your sort of risk tolerance this late into a season to maybe bring on a guy that defends in space against 5-out lineups versus your traditional drop coverage big?
Yeah, that's a really good. I know you guys are pros. I would say it really depends on the quality. It's going to sound like a dodge. It really isn't. It really depends on the quality of player. So I think if you get over fixated on, it has to be a switchy big, or it has to be more of a guy who can clean up our rebounding, because that's been one of our not as strong areas. With Dwight cleans that up. That's, for a top defense, we need to probably be stronger there. So it's really we're going to go with the best player relative to what's available. Yeah.
And a quick follow-up. Is your long-term ideal scenario where you have optionality behind Joel to be able to throw out a more switchy defendant space lineup?
I like having optionality for just to give the coaching staff different options, because I think in the playoffs that can be important. But again, you can't force it. It's perfectly well and good to say, oh, you should play X way, but if you can't put the 3, 4, 5, good players that can execute that strategy, it's better to play, more traditional. I would say right now, I mean, we feel good about our optionality. We feel like we have 12 guys you can put on the floor in a playoff series, which is obviously more than we're going to play. So we have some injury protection. We have some optionality, different ways we can play. So, I feel, we feel pretty good about where we are.
ready for the playoffs and the rest of the season. And so two more, Daryl, Howard, and then David Murphy. Howard, go ahead.
Daryl, I know you can't mention players from another team, but according to the reports, the Sixers were in on Kyle Lowry. With that possibly being the case, do you want more consistent shooters? Because I know that's something you've liked in the past, and you like because you maybe feel that it's not quite good enough now with this team.
You can always do better, but we felt pretty good about it. It was really more shooting coming in a package of a strong defender along with it. And so that like shooters are a little easier to find. I mean, although shooters as good as Seth, arguably top 5 all time. But getting George's, recent, 40% at range and plus shooting and a strong defensive package. That, again, to go back to my last question, it gives Coach Rivers options in different ways, the different lineups he can play. George has also had success starting a little bigger and smaller, so that gives, again, some more optionality. I think we felt to try to answer your question a little more directly, I think we felt good about the shooting of all the options we were considering. So I don't think that was a factor.
All right, we're gonna have time for one more from David Murphy. Go ahead, David.
Hey Daryl, when you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference and in particular kind of that top 4, I guess at least projected wise, you've got Miami adding Oladipo and pairing him with Nunn, and you've got some guard heavy teams in Brooklyn and Milwaukee. You've got some bigs that can pull Joel away from the basket potentially. Do you feel like teams had you guys in mind? And what do you think about the landscape now, kind of when you look at it?
I think they have us in mind. I think teams are going to play smaller lineups against us. It's a better way to combat, the best big in the league, in my opinion, in Joel, than it is to try and always throw a traditional 5 at Joel. So I expect teams to try that. I do think Joel's at a stage in his career where that could go very poorly for other teams, but if I was trying to attack us, I'd try to be creative as well. I think we're pretty hard to beat. I think Brooklyn's going to go into these playoffs the favorite, but I think we're right there, and I don't think there's really a clear favorite in the league. I think there's probably five or six teams that have an extremely good chance to win it, and we're one of them. And that's where you like to be. I think we upgraded ourselves a lot today, and we're going to be one of the top few teams to win the title, and hopefully we get it done. So we feel very good about our spot.
And then one last, how did you balance that? How did you balance that with? Obviously, you had some opportunities to make yourself perhaps even better, but it would have come at the expense of 2 or 3 years potentially. How do you balance that in terms of knowing, clearly you're a competitor and you want to,
That's the right question. I think, we talked about this maybe even back to my opening press conference. I looked a lot at championship probability, and so it really comes down to, this move will increase our odds to win the title this year a certain amount, but, we'll give up stuff that'll lower our odds in the future, and we try to balance that, so we're maximizing that. Obviously, giving more weight to the current year, but we're, I'm always looking at a 3-ish, 2 to 4 year time horizon, and try to maximizing their odds. I think, Doc and Elton and myself, we're hoping to have a very long run here, and we have some amazing players in their prime, and so what I'm trying to do is maximize our chance of winning the title over that window with more weight this year. So if there's a move that ups our odds a little bit more this year, but really hurts our odds in the future, then that doesn't make sense. Like, we're actually hurting our chance to win the title overall.
If it's a move that, ups our odds a decent amount but doesn't affect our future odds, then that's a move that looks pretty interesting. And so I think this move very materially increased our championship odds and also kept our ones in the future preserved at a very high level.
Thanks, man.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Thanks, everyone. We're about to get started with Coach Rivers at the other link. Thanks, Daryl.
Thanks. Appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks.
Daryl Morey.
That was good stuff, especially at the end there, huh?
Definitely.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
So what did you guys think about when he was asked about George Hill's injury? I think Hudrick asked him. Did that sound like, Jay, obviously he's going to be okay because they made the move, but like, did it sound like he won't be available for like maybe a couple of weeks?
No, I think he was fighting hard to say days, not weeks.
Days, okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
already reported. Oh, my bad.
It felt like he couldn't say that he let it slip once that he's fine.
Okay.
So I think what he was trying to hold back from committing to was, we think we're going to have him available in days, not weeks.
Yeah, because there were reports already that because he had a cast on for a while on his shooting hand, and there were reports already that the cast's been off, that he's just like he's basically rehabbing everything right now. Like it seems like he's pretty ready, like damn near ready to go from the reports I heard.
Yeah, I mean, he's missed a lot of time. He hasn't played since like January 23rd or something. It's been like 2 months.
And I think the other thing you have to like that Morey said was that he got a surgery that was basically to make so it's not going to happen again, rather than something to just rehabilitate it and hopefully not happen again. It's not going to be a Deshaun Jackson situation. It's going to be it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about with Deshaun Jackson, I'm talking about when he had his abdomen. He had abdomen issues.
What else?
Are we getting Doc Rivers on this too? Are we getting? Can we grab Doc on here, Jay?
Doc is going to talk at 8:30, so no, probably not. Wait,
it's 8:40 right now.
Oh shit! All right, let's do it.
Jason, you said that with such confidence. You said, "Well, Doc's going to talk at 8:30, so probably not."
Well, let's find out. He might be done talking. It might be true.
No, they just said he was going to start talking in the other link.
Oh, I know. I for some reason I thought 6:40 was 6:14.
Come on, Ramona, you're a veteran. Take it off mute.
That's the first thing you hear.
She
there we go. Time on my phone. That's why.
Yeah, see?
Hey, welcome back to LA. Good to see you again.
Oh, good seeing you.
What's it like for you being back here now? I mean, it's kind of weird with no fans and everything, but do you go home?
The city hasn't changed. My house is the same, so I'm just, and I go in the same way. I just don't go in the same door. So other than that, I mean, it's just nice to be back. Nice to get good weather, find some of the restaurants that are still serving. So that's all nice as well. But other than that, it's, it's business as usual.
What do you have any just emotions playing, especially when you're going to play the Clippers when that game comes up and facing Ty again?
Listen, I made a lot of friends there. I made very few enemies. You know what I mean? So hopefully none. Like walking in the door today, because it's the same people. I don't know if people understand that when you come to Staples Center, the same workers work both games. And so for me, that's what saying hi to all them walking in today was fantastic. It's sad though, Ramona, a lot of the guys that park their cars and things like that are not working right now. They only have one guy back there and due to COVID. So, even though we're playing the games, you can still see a lot of the people who work the arenas
and who are involved in everyday operations don't have a job right now or are laid off. And that hits home when you come back somewhere that you're used to seeing a lot of people. That was the first thing that I actually noticed walking in this building.
Dan Wicke, you're up next.
Hey, Doc, proud to be one of those enemies that you did make here in LA.
I tried my damnedest, Dan.
With sort of the uncertainty of the pandemic and kind of just the crazy nature of this season, do you think it changed teams' willingness to go for it totally? Was that a factor, do you think, in organizational decisions?
No, I just think there's a lot of teams that think they have a chance to win it. I don't actually think COVID, if you're going to do that, it was last year when you were in a bubble, because, I thought you didn't have to be the best. You could have the best chemistry. And if you were the best with the best chemistry, then you were really tough to meet. But this is very similar, normal in a lot of ways, except for no fans. I'm hoping by playoff times we have a little bit more. We're starting to get some fans in Philadelphia. And though it's, whatever percent, 5,000, 3,000, it feels like it's 10 or 15. And for the players, it feels that way as well. But listen, when you look at the West and the East, there's a lot of teams that believe that they can win. And I think that's what's creating all the interest in the trade market and in the buyout market as well.
Got a Vince Goodwill and then.
Hey, Doc, that was kind of the question that I was going to ask you. Do you feel like the teams feel like this is more wide open than it's been maybe in the past, recent history? Or do you feel like it's still kind of the same, maybe 3 to 5 teams that have a realistic chance at a championship?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I would say in the West, for sure, you pretty much know who the favorites are. I don't think that's changed. In the East, I think it goes deeper. There's a lot of good teams, that have a chance. So, I would say in the West is the same, the East is more.
I have time for 2 more. Paul Hudrick, Broderick Turner. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Doc. One of the things you've talked about with your bench throughout the year is just kind of, at times, them kind of not running the offense the way you would like them to do so. Do you think George, with his experience, being the veteran, kind of, having that experience as a floor general, that can help that unit, maybe him kind of take control of the offense at times?
I think so. But I also think health helps the second unit. I think we always get lost in that. When the more injuries you have to your first unit, the more guys from your second unit is in your first unit, and so, like not having Joel and not having Seth has hurt our starting lineup, where now we take 2 guys off the bench and put them in the starting lineup, so that in turn hurts the bench. So I think health, number 1, will help our bench play, and then George Hill will help as well.
Thank you.
All right, 1 more from Broderick Turner. Go ahead.
Doc, where's my bottle of wine you owe me, man? Don't laugh, where's my wine?
It's half open. It's in my room. I knew I was going to see you and Ramona and Dan, so I started early today.
We are so tough.
Me and LeBron.
Yeah. Look, Rondo just got traded to the team.
Yeah.
You had him.
Yeah.
What going to do for that team? And that's the team that you coached most of last year?
Yeah, he's going to be great. And his relationship with Ty will help as well. If you have forgotten, Ty was with me in Boston with Rondo. And Ty and Sam in particular, whether I guess called the Rondo Coach Whisperers or whatever you want to call them. And so they had a hell of a relationship. And so I think it's nice when you make a trade or when you go somewhere, like in my case, coming to Philly, and I already had a relationship with Tobias. It's nice when that happens. And in that case, I think that'll be good.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
I want my wine, man.
You got it. It's coming.
That's good stuff.
He wants his wine, man.
You think Doc's got any wine for us?
Send some our way, man.
I don't think so. I don't think anyone in Philly is reached that level of comfort yet with him.
Yeah, listen, everybody, drop a like for Jason Blevins' exclusive content coming to everybody. I don't know where else you find that interview right now.
Yeah, that was awesome, man.
No, listen, Justin is the only reason I'm here because I was in the middle of playing Dungeons and Dragons from a hotel room off of my hotspot because this hotel room the whole hotel lost power up until 90 minutes ago. And you were like, you got to stream this. And I was like, do I though?
Listen, I had to pull you out. I had to pull you out.
I know. I said, can Austin do it? And Austin said, Dylan is live. And I said, okay, I'll jump on with Dylan and see if they're okay.
Thank God you did. That was awesome.
It's literally how that
I told Austin I didn't think Dylan would care. I was like,
no.
It's an exclusive interview of Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey. Why would you not want this on your?
Hell no. Other podcasts don't get to have that.
Who else do you want to hear?
Only right here on TP. You want to have a Daily Dose /TPL Live Mix, whatever you want to call this.
Yeah, I thought this was supposed to be like a 5-minute show, Dylan.
Yeah.
You pitched it. You were like, this is going to be a 5-minute show every day. We're going to give it to him every day. We are an hour and 21 minutes in. What happened?
It's an hour every day, man.
I really appreciate everybody who joined. Big shout out to Dylan, to Justin, and for dragging me out of my Dungeons and Dragons game.
Jay, before you hop off, what do you got for tonight? Are the Sixers going to keep rolling without Joel, or do they have a bad, ugly loss tonight?
Oh, I haven't even thought about tonight.
Okay, well, so I do want to ask a question. This is the thing that's happening now. What do you think about DeMarcus Cousins or LaMarcus Aldridge with the Sixers? I don't obviously. I think everyone's opinion here has been no LaMarcus, but DeMarcus Cousins. What is your thoughts with that?
I'm curious. I asked that question to Daryl because while it may not sound like I was asking a Paul Reed question, I was giving him the opportunity to tell us that we think Paul Reed can play right now.
Yeah,
and the answer was clearly Doc's not going to play Paul Reed, right? Yeah. But that was sort of like, I'm leaving you the window. If you think that's what we should be thinking about, then think about it. Then this is your chance to say it. But I have talked myself into DeMarcus Cousins on this team as that guy that I would sign in the buyout market. LaMarcus Aldridge is harder for me to, because I just think he needs more like dribbles and more shot clock. I just think he does in general. And this team is not a team where you're going to hand that to your third string center.
See, Jason, it's funny as hell that you're saying this because I literally earlier today, it was me, Dibes, and Mark that were on here, and I was like, DeMarcus Cousins fits so well on this team now offensively. If you put him out there with Matisse Thybulle and Ben Simmons, that could go very well in the bench rotation. I was like, anyway,
and it might not. It might really not work, but it's like there's zero risk to it now.
Exactly. It's like the Dwight Howard signing of a minimum deal. Like it's the same thing.
Yeah, there's absolutely no. I'm sure they have a list, and I don't know if he's number 1, 2, 3 on that list, but I would expect him to be on a roster somewhere for somebody. I unless they're really worried about team chemistry and his just very particular, like he has guys in the league that love him, like Rondo. We just talked about Rondo. Rondo loves that guy. And then he has other guys that he just doesn't vibe with at all. So
I think don't him and Embiid vibe pretty well together?
Yeah, it's
but they're not around each other all day, every day. Frustrating. You know how it is when you play with like somebody that gives you a hard time. After a while, it can frustrate you.
Yeah.
So being friends off the court and liking someone in short stints is different than being in a locker room. So I don't know the answer to that question, but I agree with you. The upside and the potential makes sense to me.
Yeah. No, because like I said that earlier, and when Tyrone came on here and he was saying how DeMarcus would already be on the team if everyone wanted them. But here's the thing, like DeMarcus is a free agent and could literally just be waiting to see where the chips are falling. And like it could be a thing where DeMarcus doesn't want to sign with a team yet because he wants to see where the chips fall to see where he wants to go once the trade deadline hits. Like to me, that's what makes the most sense as a player. If you're really gonna sit there and pick, because I don't like. Yes, I understand the injury history, but I don't understand why a team, at least one team, wouldn't want DeMarcus on their roster. You know what I mean? And here's the thing: he's gonna be cheap because of his injury history, most likely. So it's like,
well, yeah. I think we forget that the Sixers can outbid money-wise most of these other teams with their level exception. And now they've created minutes, right? So that was my big concern pre-deadline was, okay, you want to sign a guy, but what can you offer him as far as playing time?
Do you think they created minutes, though, when it comes to the postseason?
I still think they do. Yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
So you're taking Dwight out of the rotation?
No, there's a whole different Dwight. If you say Dwight, don't get in foul trouble. That's a different Dwight than the Dwight. Go do whatever you have to do.
Right, but if you got to figure Joe's going to play 36, 37 plus minutes a night, you're only asking Dwight to play 8 or so minutes a night, and he can go use those fouls in 8 or so minutes.
I don't think you. And
my thing is
crazy.
You got to shorten the rotation because you have the starting 5, and then you're going to have George Hill, Shake, Tease, Dwight. That's 4. That's saying that Furkan's not playing. Okay, that's 9 already. So are you really going to roll 10, 11 guys out there in a playoff series?
You got to think about a sore knee, the flu.
Sure, yeah.
Things where those guys in that 9, 10, 11 slot that are typically your third string at the guard, wing, and center position, those guys can come in. We saw Greg Monroe start a playoff game.
Yeah, that wasn't fun.
That's like.
Here's my thing too with that as well is that I feel, and I understand, Dylan, your argument makes sense, and saying what they're basically saying what Tyrone said, and that it makes sense. But here's the thing, like my pure reason for saying this is based on the lineups of the bench unit when you want Matisse out on the floor with Ben Simmons. If you want to put those 2 lockdown guys out there, your best bet is having a guy who can shoot from the 3. And I understand DeMarcus Cousins isn't historically, it's not like he's at Joel's level this year where he's shooting 40% from 3. He's shooting 34% from 3 this year. Not amazing.
He's a guy
been shooting. What?
Yeah. But he's a guy you think the ball's going in when he takes that shot.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if he were to play in the playoffs, I think some of it would be matchup based. But I also think it's one of those things where, kind of like Jason was just saying, where Dwight doesn't have to play scared on the defensive end or the offensive board at all. All you have to do is send Dwight out there to play defense and put DeMarcus out there to play offense when you have Ben and Matisse out there for defense already. Like that's where my mind goes. But like I said, I also understand your point in the sense of, does it make sense to add another guy and when realistically rotational minutes do go down in the playoffs?
Right.
So I understand your point.
Right. All right. I've been on here for an hour and a half, so before I wrap up this special edition of the Daily Dose before the Sixers come on tonight, Jason's not thinking about it. Justin, do the Sixers continue to play well without Joel Embiid tonight and beat a LeBron and AD less Lakers team?
Yeah, I think you look at the rosters, like you said, LeBron, AD out. The Lakers really don't have another, and that our big man depth is obviously at a 0 tonight. You got Dwight Howard and Paul Reed, basically, who could play the 5, for you tonight. I do think you see Paul Reed get minutes tonight against Montrezl Harrell, and I do think he can play up against Montrezl Harrell size-wise. So I think they'll be okay there. Realistically, I don't think the Lakers have anybody that can check Tobias right now with LeBron and AD not in the lineup. Ben Simmons is going to eat tonight. I'll tell you that much. Ben Simmons is going to eat up those small guards they got over there. So yeah, I think it should be interesting. But I think Sixers come away with the W tonight.
Scott, what do you think? Continue or bad loss?
I mean, if they lose, it will be a bad loss. But I think they should win. They got 2 stars. They got Tobias. They got Ben. You're looking at a Lakers team that's decimated. They're feeling down. They obviously, were trying to make some moves today. They didn't get much done. So, over in LA, I think they're just worried right now with that Lakers team. They're just trying to weather the storm, but tonight won't be it. I think the Sixers know they need to kind of get this. Need is a strong word, but they should take care of business here, when you're going to go on the Clippers in Denver this weekend. So I think they take care of business.
I can't get out of here. I'm surrounded by beat reporters.
Hey, this is what happens.
What is going on, man?
Not much. Just
all right. I'm gonna go. Austin is tagging me out.
Who's tagging me out?
I was gonna hop in like 2 seconds. I'm not staying. I have things to do. What's going on, guys?
What's going on? What did you think about the Doc and Daryl interviews?
I think they kind of told you what they're thinking. They wanted to maintain optionality down the road, and I think the asking price for Kyle Lowry, especially if they weren't sure if they were going to re-sign him, I just thought that at the end of the day they weren't in love with the idea of giving up all that. So I mean, you live with it. I think this whole philosophy of like the 1 year window. I mean, you got to keep in mind that whole thing that with like the 1 year window fascination was because he knew that it was a revolving door in Houston with James Harden every year. There was major roster turnover every single year, so he had to treat it like a 1 year time frame. He has 2 guys in their mid-20s, haven't even hit their ceiling, haven't even hit their primes yet, really. And I think he's even like the way that this team is constructed is so much different than the way he's operated in previous seasons. I mean, they're defense first here. They were never that way in Houston. So just because the Rockets were built a certain way doesn't mean that the Sixers have to be built that way. I think he's a very analytical guy, but I think he's operating in the sense of what are our odds this year and what are we shooting for? Like, is this the year that we have to win a title? I don't think he sees it that way. So we'll see. I still think that if they get bounced in the second round or they don't achieve whatever goal they think is their floor this season, I would suspect that maybe Ben gets traded or whatever. But we'll see. We'll see.
Do you have any words? I just want to ask him if he has any words for our man Brian Jacobs because he is down in the dumps.
Listen, Brian's the fan. I try to think things through from both sides. I think you have to ask yourself, like, was there any piece on the market other than like maybe Zach LaVine, maybe Brad Beal? Was there anyone else there that like was going to materially put you ahead of anyone else in the East? I just don't think Kyle Lowry made them that much made them that much better. Would made them that much better in the East. I still think that they're pretty much neck and neck with Brooklyn. I think they're better than Milwaukee regardless. And so I think Brian has to cool his jets a little bit. And if this is the type of year where Kyle Lowry doesn't put you head over heels in front of everybody, then why would you leverage everything to make that trade?
Sure. Yeah, I needed to pull that up for you there. I saw that one on Twitter.
I always bust Brian's balls, but he and I corroborate a lot of information together to come up with what we're hearing. So
yes, sir.
He's good at what he does.
So something I wanted to say quick, based on what you were saying before about Daryl Morey, is that there's a reason why at the beginning of this season when we first got him to be the GM, there's a reason why he said this job was so mouthwatering, like the reason he wanted to come out of retirement, basically, because it's like realistically he hasn't had this chance of like you said, a 5 years where these guys are young and capable of being some of the best players in this league, if that makes sense. So it's like you said, Austin, it only made sense for him to come out of here if it was this good of an opportunity. And that's why this is a completely different opportunity than it was with the Rockets.
Well, I just think it was – I don't know if it was much as like that as it was he saw the tea leaves with the Rockets and was like, get me the hell out of here before this.
Yeah, obviously they get me the hell out of here thing with the Rockets, but I'm saying specifically with the Sixers, he went out of retirement before they even like he sorry, not out of retirement. He left that job and then okay. All right, never mind. I guess Austin got some got some thoughts.
Well, no. I just think like the guy, he's a human being. He talks it over with his family and his wife, and they plan out their next steps. He has an idea of what's coming. I mean, just because they're not allowed to talk to other teams about opportunities doesn't mean that they don't have conversations. I mean, they have cell phones. Everyone has cell phones.
Yeah.
I mean that I'd have a very hard time believing that he was bought into his break or retirement or whatever, and then a week later is like holding up a Sixers jersey at a press conference.
But
I just don't buy that.
Yeah, but didn't Doc come in after Daryl left already? Like Doc became the Sixers head coach after Daryl had already left the Rockets.
Nope. Daryl left the Rockets after Doc got hired in Philly. And it was like Doc had been the coach for like a month, I think. And then Daryl leaves like two weeks later, and then he's a Sixer like a week after that. Some might even argue that Doc was part of what was like the force that got Daryl to Philly.
Well, yeah,
because keep in mind Doc worked with Daryl in Boston together, so they have some connection. But I think it was more like along the lines of, I'm getting out of Houston because I know Harden's not going to be here. I know this is going to go to hell. And I don't want to be around for it, which I can't blame him. I mean, it's smart. Yeah. And then, the opportunities come knocking. The ownership group is, makes him an offer he can't refuse. And he comes to a situation where they're 2 stars. I mean, as bad as Sixers Twitter makes it sound like, at the end of the day, even if you have Al Horford, even if you have whatever, chaos was going on, you still have 2 perennial all-stars below the age of 27. That's still a very lucrative opportunity that a lot of people would their mouths would water over.
Yeah. All right. Before we stay on here too goddamn long and this turns into a Sixers live stream, Scott, what did you want to say? You got one last thing?
Oh, no. I was just pointing out from Daryl Morey's press conference. I thought it was interesting that he mentioned he would go small ball against Joel Embiid in the playoffs. I thought that was pretty interesting that would be his method of madness there, to kind of just throw, small ball lineups at Joel Embiid.
I mean, if you think about it, every time the Celtics were kicking our asses, it was because Daniel Tice or Aaron Baines were out there hitting threes. If you really think of, and same with even the Raptors as well. With Marc Gasol.
Well, think about it. Why would you go small against an elite big man like that? What's the
right, you got to you pulling him away from the rim.
Yeah,
you want to make that big man defend in space.
Yeah.
And theoretically, a guy of Joel Embiid's size, he's agile. He's more agile than Rudy Gobert, but you're going to wear him down on both ends of the court if he's defending in space. If you go small, which makes sense. So that's the theory behind that. But we'll see. I have some suspicions. It wouldn't shock me if they brought in like DeMarcus Cousins.
Hey. That's 2 people that said that. Dude, I swear to God, if DeMarcus Cousins come here, I've been saying this for so long. I'm so like, I will be so patting myself on the back if this happens. I'm so serious.
He bought in the boogie. All right. For this special edition of the Daily Dose, thank you for everyone that commented, for everyone that stuck with us this whole time, from the Tyrone Johnson interview to the Daryl Morey Zoom call, to the Doc Rivers Zoom call, to Jason Blevins, Justin Krell, all the beat writers here at TPL joining us tonight. So you can follow Krell on Twitter at NBA Krell. You can follow Justin at J_Persichetti. You can follow my man Scott on Twitter at Scotty Drown. For myself, for Scott, for Justin, for Jason, for Krell, for everybody here at TPL, have a nice night and go Sixers.
Peace.